present to you some information about in-office radiology today. And I'll start with my own personal story. So Rami El-Zubi is our guest of honor today, and he and I have known each other for many, many years. Xoran is a very important supplier within US ENT. In fact, they were one of the very first suppliers to partner with us. Again, I think we're on our second or maybe our third contract, so probably 5 or 6 years ago now. And it all sprung from my experience at Collin County ENT in Dallas. So if I might just take a moment to explain that, and Rami and I will kind of discuss back and forth over the next 15 or 20 minutes, the pros and cons, and then we want to reserve some time for questions at the end, but we'll be respectful of everybody's lunch hour. So in my practice, we, like many other practices 10 or 15 years ago, shipped all of our radiology out. We have a very nice imaging center in our office complex. We had a good relationship with them. They always brought fantastic cookies over, lunches, and things like that, right? And so we thought nothing of evaluating a patient, whether it was a sinus patient or an ear patient, and ordering the CT scan, sinus, temporal bone, what have you, and then sending them across the street. Now, sometimes they could accommodate that the same day, but most of the time a prior auth was required, and so the imaging study would happen on a different day. And then there would be a different day where the patient would have to come back in, dragging the CD with them for us to look at the results together. And what we saw is that we had significant leakage, significant loss of patients at each step along the way, besides the fact that it was extremely inconvenient for our patients to do that. Our patients are just as busy as we are, and when we go to physicians, we need everything to happen right then. We've blocked out time, and we need to have a plan and a decision. So the intermediate step that we did at Collin County ENT was to share a scanner, kind of like a timeshare. So we leased it, and there were 5 or 6 ENT practices around us in Dallas-Fort Worth that shared a certain scanner, and it was mobile. So on our practice, it would come in on Mondays. Well, unfortunately for me, Monday is one of my operating days. So I never had the luxury of doing a clinic with the CT scanner there, although my partners did, and they saw the benefit of seeing a patient, walking down the hall, being able to have CT imaging done and immediately available for review. But that at least was better that it was in our office and we had that capability, at least for some of my partners. And we did that for many years. And then finally in 2017, I saw the light. And we decided to go ahead and make the large capital purchase, which Rami and I will talk about the numbers and all these things, the nitty-gritty details momentarily. We decided to purchase the Xoran, and I remember vividly, it was a Wednesday in October, and Wednesday is one of my busiest clinic days. And by Thursday, I wondered what the heck we ever did without an in-office CT that we could use at all times. It was just such a convenience for our patients, but also for us as providers to be able to image when we wanted to. And again, we'll talk about the reimbursement and the economics of that, but even without those, just the convenience factor we found in our practice has been so worth it. And so with that, I want to introduce formally Rami El-Zubi. Rami is the National Sales Director for Xoran. Xoran is far and away the market leader worldwide in in-office CT scanning, in-office radiology, and their tentacles are going everywhere. They're in veterinary medicine and certainly a lot of other surgical subspecialties too, not just ENT, even having a mobile unit that now can be used in the hospital setting in the ICU. So Rami, feel free to say a few remarks, and then we'll dive into our fireside chat.
Absolutely. First and foremost, thank you for allowing us to be on the webinar and discuss the benefits of CT. I definitely want to have the discussion to be as round as possible in terms of not only what benefits Xoran can bring, but also, of course, CT in general. So if anybody has any questions about CT, imaging, how it can affect your practice across the whole, not just Xoran, please feel free to ask those away. I originally started with Xoran back in 2007. Since then, as Dr. Matheny has mentioned, we've have over 1,000 minicats sold worldwide, quickly approaching 1,000 alone in the US. So it's something that we definitely pride ourselves on, being the market leader, being dedicated to the ENT space, ENT and allergy space, to really try to help you practice medicine that much better. So definitely thank you for allowing us to be on the chat, Dr. Matheny.
Absolutely. So let's dive right in, Rami. We just have probably 10, 12, 15 minutes. Why in the world would a practice, especially emerging from COVID, with all the economic struggles that most of us had, the fact that we're paying our workforce 8, 10, 12% more than we were pre-COVID, reimbursements continue to go down, et cetera, et cetera. Why in the world would we make a large capital purchase like a CT scanner when there are perfectly good radiology facilities, like I mentioned, in the same office complex or right across the street?
No, I think you hit it right on the head. It is the biggest question that ENT practices and physicians continue to ask to this day. When I first started selling CT into ENT way back when, it was $225,000 for the unit. It still probably is today the biggest investment that an ENT practice will make, unless you're buying your building or buying a surgery center. However, and this is something that me, Dr. Matheny, and others who are on will know as well, the business of ENT is not something that I shy away from. Now, ultimately, we are here to provide patient care, giving them the best access to medicine that we can do. However, practices, because of not only COVID, but because of inflation, because of wages, because of everything else that's going on in the world, have to find new ways to stay relevant. And adding an additional ancillary service like CT is going to do just that. With procedures coming into the office, with patients becoming more educated in terms of radiation dose, with their lives needing to become more efficient and streamlined, the amount of information that's available online, whether you look at feedback from patients, Google reviews, whatever it may be, you need to find new ways to do your business better. And more, CT is becoming that limiting step, that thing that will hold up pretty much the entire process when seeing a patient. So the easy answer is it's going to make your practice better from top to bottom, whether it's efficiency with the back work, with the back office staff, efficiency with scheduling, helping out your patients, and then, of course, generating additional revenue.
But that revenue comes at a price, right? So don't we have to hire a radiology tech, or the physicians have to go through certain CME on an annual or biannual basis? We have staff that are now prior authorizing CT scans and all those kind of things. So is it worth it?
I think that 1,000 customer practices will tell you yes, that it's absolutely worth it. Just like you said, take one day for you to really realize what was I doing beforehand. And there are countless other stories just like that. We've helped practices who have had to fight landlords on their leases. We've helped practices that were based in hospital buildings. We've helped hospital ENT departments install MiniCat. There is not a walk of life, if you will, right? There is not a type of ENT or allergy practice that we have not helped install a MiniCat in. And I think every single one of them, it's safe to assume, will say that this improved their business and their quality of life. Now, just like with anything, there are pros and cons. I always tell customers that the first couple months are going to be the hardest, where you start to learn your workflow. You'll start to learn, should you take the patient back to an exam room? Should you review the patient scan in the MiniCat room? There is the option to hire a tech. Now, of course, the salary comes with that, but the offset to that is the physician will have to come in, operate the MiniCat. We do work on that constantly. We are very proud to continue to update our software and our efficiency, where you can acquire and begin reviewing a scan in roughly 40 seconds. And that's something that we continue to work on even till this day.
Absolutely. Now, before we get into the numbers, what's entailed in installing a CT scanner? Can you just throw it in any empty closet or exam room, or what's involved in setting up a room that's dedicated to that amount of radiation?
Well, the great news is we handle it all for you. You're going to get that complete white glove turnkey solution, and it's really state dependent. So the size of the room, the radiation, those are kind of fixed. We work with a third party independent medical physicist who will help determine any type of lead lining or shielding needs. They actually come on site post installation as well to ensure that the measurements taken, the calculations that they performed are all indeed correct. And they'll come on site to really do that after we install. However, we will install any type of shielding that you need. Our system, the MiniCat, comes with a protective barrier that protects the operator. So there's no need for you to have to go looking for a contractor, no need for you to outsource any type of lead. We're going to handle it all for you. We'll provide you with all the paperwork for state registration. There are steps, just like everything else that you have to do in your practice. There are going to be steps. There are hurdles that we're going to have to overcome. The good news is we've done it before. We'll continue to do it, and we're going to help you every step of the way.
You mentioned this a moment ago, but just to hammer it home, can any old person in your office push the button and take the CT scan, or what's required? I know states vary, but what's required on average to do the actual scan?
More often than not, it does have to be a tech, an RT, a CT tech, or a physician. That's always going to be your safest option, is for somebody to, now anybody can train, we'll train everybody in your office. Anybody can seat the patient, get them ready, and then the physician or the tech would be the one to ultimately operate the system.
Yeah, that's important to keep in mind. It's important. What's that, Michelle?
I'm sorry. A physician's assistant is also able to press the button as well.
Yeah, mid-level providers. That's a great point. Absolutely. Great point. Okay. So, Rami, you've made a good case that it helps workflow and everything, but let's talk about billing. Let's talk about reimbursement. So reimbursement obviously is not even state by state. It's really region by region within states. So can anybody in the United States have in-office CT?
Just about. You will get accredited, which puts the practice on par with an imaging center or a hospital to be able not only to acquire those scans, but also to read those scans. And that's something that we always stress to our customers, that you want to get accredited. We'll help you through that entire process, step by step, question by question. Now, there are the occasional insurance providers who will give you the hurdles, right, that you have to jump through, but I don't think that's anything unique to CT or to MiniCat. It's something that we will help you work through to the best of our ability. But as a whole, there's nobody just straight denying CT.
And there are some states, though, that don't allow office CT. And so some physicians have treated their CT scanner as just a fancy X-ray machine. Is that correct? Or can you describe a little bit more, like Maryland, like Arkansas, like states like that?
Michigan, our home state, where we operate out of, we manufacture here. We're also unable to still sell CT. That is correct. There is a certificate of need law in a handful of states or so where we have come up with a solution to help practices obviously offer in-office imaging. There are some drawbacks, as you mentioned. However, the overall benefit of being able to service those patients, to offer that same day service, to be able to schedule a procedure should there be a need, or to prescribe the correct medicine for it is invaluable.
Now, do most payers, and I agree with all this, by the way, I'm making sure we cover all the topics. Do most payers allow same day CT scans? So let's say you're seeing a new patient. And you scan them that day, can you bill the new patient E&M code and then the 70486?
That's going to obviously be specific, but what you did yesterday, you'll have to do tomorrow. So whatever you're seeing now currently with working with your patients, we do have practices who educate their insurance providers that they're now offering in-office CT same-day service. There are still the criteria. That's not going to change. And that's something that you'll have to continue to work through with your staff. Yes.
Michelle, how do you guys handle that?
So we do same day CTs with new patients all the time.
We do too.
And
We do too.
so when we do, there is that little nuance of, we do it, we bill it, and we also interpret it. So where you take your credit for that when you're looking at E&M codes can be critical. But for the vast majority of our patients, once you have the criteria down for each individual insurance company, you can do same day CTs on any of your patients. We have a CT tech specifically, and that's what she does. She prior auths them and does them while the physician sees the patient. He says, I might want to do it. She gets the authorization. He okays it. She walks the patient over and boom, he reads it.
Excellent.
It's super quick.
Yeah, about the best workflow that we've seen around the country.
Mhm.
So Rami, what obviously there's so many US ENT practices that have scanners in multiple offices, and not all of them even mess with billing. So does this make sense economically, even if you're not going to take the time for prior auth, or there are certain payers that don't reimburse in-office CT?
I honestly don't see how it's not, regardless if you're doing procedures in the office or in the OR, just by being able to see additional patients. If you think about your time slots today or throughout the whole week, how many were filled with returning patients who you sent out for imaging? How many of those time slots could you open up for a new first-time patient? So regardless if you're doing procedures or if you're going to capture the revenue from CT, which just like everything in your practice, you're not going to retire off of whatever you're getting paid for each scan, regardless if you're interpreting it or not. However, the fact that it's going to make you more efficient, it really, really just opens up a world of possibilities in terms of other additional revenue streams that you can have with your patients. Now, from a revenue kind of standpoint with MiniCat alone, it's around 20 scans per month, and that's using a nationwide average for Medicare reimbursement. It's roughly $140. If you're averaging around 20 scans per month, you're at least going to break even, and that's if you finance the MiniCat.
Yeah, and thank you for bringing that up. So through US ENT, as many of you are aware, we have two different financing options for these CT scanners. So one, if a US ENT member is also a Fuel customer, Fuel can arrange 0% financing on this purchase. And then for those of you who utilize Stryker technology, your balloons, your Clarifix, your Latera, what have you, Stryker can also arrange that 0% financing. So for my practice, again, I'm fine sharing my own numbers. I would never share anyone else's. We paid off our first scanner, but our monthly note was $3,200, something like that, $3,200 and change. So it did not take very many CT scans. Usually by the 5th or 6th day of the month, we had already paid the note with what we were getting reimbursed, and the rest was new revenue, profit. But even more so, even if we didn't bill for the scans, my experience was an immediate uptick in office balloon sinuplasty, allergy testing, even traditional sinus surgery in the operating room. Certainly we saw an uptick in our ears doing temporal bone CT, simply because when we had the patient there in our office for their new patient appointment, doing the scan, as Rami said, it's literally less than 60 seconds to do the scan and be able to review it with the patient. Being able to decide everything that day, we saw an uptick in all of those procedures, simply because we didn't have the leakage at each step. So I would argue that it's worth it, even if you're not getting reimbursed, but it's not very difficult, as Michelle outlined. It's not very difficult to get reimbursed for a significant amount of your scans. Anything to add to that, Rami?
Absolutely. If you think about the workflow of your back office staff, if your practice is the one, and you really should be, it's kind of a gray area if you're letting the surgery center or imaging center or hospital do your pre-certification. It's a little bit of a gray area. But if your staff is the one spending time, effort to get those scans pre-cert, and then they leave, that's just revenue leaving. Not only is that
just an excellent point,
but that's also money that you lost tying up your staff's time. So
that's an excellent point. Your staff is already doing it, so you might as well have that revenue from performing the actual scan and the interpretation, like Michelle said. So both the technical component of the scan and the physician interpreting it. Okay, well, again, the last thing I'll leave you with is when I'm over at my satellite office, which is primarily a hearing center for Earlens, which is actually where I'm sitting right now. I'm out in California at the Earlens headquarters, and I don't have the CT scanner there. It takes me back 10 or 15 years to the lack of convenience I have when I see a sinus patient. And even post-op, if there's anything going on, just the ease to be able to walk them down the hall, put them in a chair. It takes 16 to 18 seconds to do the scan, and we can immediately see what's going on with that patient. And so I feel like it helps even in states, and we have many US ENT members who are in states where you cannot bill for in-office CT. Xoran has a solution where it's technically a radiology machine. It's an X-ray machine, so they meet everything by the letter of the law and a compliance standpoint. The reimbursement is a little bit less than CT scan, but still not nothing. And again, underneath that all is, even if you weren't getting reimbursed, most of us feel around the country that the CT scanner is worth it from what it does to all other lines of business. Any other questions or comments? Matt, what have you guys seen up in Chicago? I know you have several units at all your different sites.
Yeah, I think we're relatively new to Xoran. The team up here, the various clinics had experience with a couple of other manufacturers, and I'm going to say that the experience so far seems to be quite good. Certainly working with Rami has been a delight and a positive change over the experience with the other vendors.
that's very kind of you to say. Thank you.
Rami, did you bribe him to say that?
I did not think it was going to come off that obvious, Dr. Matheny.
Yeah,
but yeah,
it's pretty obvious.
No,
All right,
no cash
well,
was exchanged in the making of these comments.
yeah.
No Wolverines gear or anything. Congratulations on the big game, Rami.
Oh, nice win for us. Yes, that was huge.
That was awesome.
Yeah, they look good. They look good. Well, we just have a couple minutes left. Any other questions or comments? Feel free to speak up or put them in the chat. Otherwise, we are always available. Julia will drop Rami's direct contact into the follow-up after this. This recording is always available if you want to share it with colleagues. But again, I want to leave you with, in my practice and practices all around the country, in-office CT has been a quantum leap in customer service for our patients and patient care, but also as a new revenue stream. And we don't know what we would do without it, quite frankly.
I agree with you, Dr. Matheny. It's awesome for our practice. We have a wonderful experience. We've been accredited and have maintained our accreditation, and it does definitely generate a lot of revenue for us based on the region and what you're contracted with each insurance company. The only thing that I've ever seen is that if we personally don't accept a specific type of insurance, that's where you have the issue and you would send those few out. But other than that, it's amazing.
Yeah, absolutely. And what we do in that case, Michelle, I'll do it at no charge to the patient, or we'll do a negotiated cash pay price. Simply because of the convenience, it's worth it to me to even do it for free, just to see that patient and make a decision right then.
Oh, sure. We have
how much we believe in it. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
All right, guys. Well, thank you so much for your time, and we look forward to seeing how this grows, this in-office radiology grows within our membership, and look forward to seeing you after the holidays on our next Supplier Spotlight. Have a great afternoon.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thanks, Rami. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.